If you love Baltimore sports, you'll love WNST.net.
Coach, if we're 3 weeks into this thing and we're already hearing these gloom and doom stories of guys who have been warned about this now for the better part of a couple of years, and guys who certainly understand that they're playing a career, a game where certainly tomorrow not promised to you, much less next year. Is this a deeper look into what's happening to more and more of these guys once they find their careers coming to an unceremonious end? Because if folks are reaching the end of their rope 3 months into this, I can only imagine how hard retired players really are dealing with the struggles of life.
We've seen a story where Mark Brunell's broke. After all these years in the league. Now, that was real estate and whatnot.
Right, and that can happen.
But everybody's making an investment of some kind.
That
right?
can happen a lot of different ways. Everybody's personal 401k and retirement has been affected over the last couple of years. Just like you have to recognize who's doing business today the way they did 3 years ago. Nobody. It's a changed economic environment. That's what the owners are saying. It's going to be fair for the players. It really is. But it's got to allow for growth in the National Football League beyond the time that you're going to play as a player. That's a lot to ask.
At what point does this get detrimental between players and coaches and players and owners? And, Derek Mason throwing the owners under the bus. And I know you spoke fondly of him in your book, and he's my favorite Raven of all time, not. But when the players start spouting off about the owners in the early part of this thing, at what point do the feelings start to get hurt to the point where guys are going to blackball themselves by being stupid and saying stupid things?
Well, fortunately, owners want to win, and they'll dance with the devil to get it done. And it's nothing, with the old phrase, nothing personal, just business, is very applicable here. But to think that it's not going to have an effect, it always comes back to the same thing. And I love Derek. I loved coaching him, and I'd give me a whole team of Derek Masons. But there's times when you just go, okay, tell me what it is you're trying to accomplish. What is it you want here? Because to say some of the things he's saying, and he's not the Lone Ranger, you just kind of scratch your head and, the old Chris Rock routine, where he says, I'd never hit a woman, but there's times I want to shake the what out of her. It's the same thing with players. Sometimes you just want to shake them and go, man, can you not just shut up because you're coming off very poorly?
If we take away the delivery, though, is it not kind of the same thing that you were saying earlier, is that we open this 18-game schedule, but we really bring it to the table as fodder that we might concede in these negotiations, just like HGH testing, as the NFL already has a drug policy in place. I think Mason's point more succinctly would have been, why do we need to open this can of worms as well right now?
Because you're in the midst of a collective bargaining agreement that needs to be settled, and it's an important issue. Now, in defense of the players, yes, the commissioner has to be aware that the invasive nature of testing for HGH changes the equation a little bit. The players have a right on two fronts. One, this is much more invasive than just going and, peeing in a cup. And who's doing the testing and what do the results say? I've long had a concern for that. The league is very above board with that, but this is not a pure science. And I have I've said it many times. Sit in the league meeting year after year, people would be shocked to hear how unregulated the over-the-counter medications at the GNCs and the likes, how unregulated that is. The combinations of things that you could put in your body, totally unintended to, that come out in testing in a certain way. So yeah, the players have the right to say, wait a minute, we got to find a better way to do this testing. We embrace the idea we don't want it in the game. We got to find a better way to do it because I'm the one you're going to take it from. And I want to make sure that we have everything above board, everything's transparent about the results. Those are very legitimate questions that the league has to answer.
I'm guessing some of the other things that could potentially be done with blood and the like, that from a team standpoint, that would represent team interests, it has to be, at least from a conspiracy standpoint, part of the union's concern.
Yeah, and then that deserves to be above board, not only for the players, but for the fans.
All right, last thing for you. We'll wrap it up with this because you've said several times you love being in New York. You love being there for the draft. Many, many years, I guess you never went to New York for the draft.
No.
I mean, I've been once. I was there the day Ray Lewis was drafted and the day that John Ogden was drafted.
Different.
And it was awful. It was dreadful. It was boring. I wish I were here.
Is something, if you are the person, and I know you are, and most people here, if you're the guy that's got to go to a Super Bowl, I got to go to a Final Four, I've got to go to Kentucky Derby, I got to go see Indy 500, I got to go see a Daytona 500, I got to go to one of these. You have to go to the NFL draft.
Why? Tell me why.
It is an extravaganza. First off, it has absolutely nothing to do with football. Okay?
It's a television show.
We're making lists, right?
Right.
We could get the draft done in about 2 hours. If you just sat down, everybody got on the same computer, we'll crank it out, it's done. But why? It is so much fun. The energy in New York, it's spring in New York to begin with, it's phenomenal. The energy of the fans, and it is agents, entourages, marketing people. When I first walked in, I felt like Jesus was going to walk into the temple and start turning over tables, going, this is not what, unbelievable. But it is an extravaganza. It is worth going up and seeing. It really is.
All right, you dig it. All right, well, I want to thank everybody for coming down to Mother's tonight. Dave Rather, Coors Light, and all the folks there, as well as Brian. And we're going to do this again the Monday after the draft. We're going to be up at Bedonia Station for everybody. And I guess we'll have a lot to talk about on that night, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
a lot of people we can rip. It'll be great. We'll have all the answers. No, they shouldn't have done this.
Then we'll know who they need at least, right?
Exactly,
we'll have a better semblance.
Well, we won't have free agency by then for sure. I mean, that's one thing. It's the whole bass-ackwardsness of this whole draft process has messed with me.
Yeah,
I think it's messed with everybody's body clock, quite frankly.
It has.
I mean, as for fans and for conversation, the things we've traditionally talked about at WNST for 15 years, it's been numb for 9 weeks.
May is when you're going to start to feel it. Now it's going to become real. Oh, wait.
So maybe May and June will become
does not feel right.
The February, March, correct?
Yeah. Hopefully we can get to that. Hopefully.
All right. Well, thanks to Brian Billick, to Thurl, Ryan, Rex is here, everybody that came out tonight. My appreciation for Mothers and Coors Light. Signing off for Thurl and Coach Billick. I'm Nestor. You're listening to WNST.
If you love Baltimore sports, you'll love WNST.net.